25% of all construction workers at random. I choose them, I snap my fingers, they're no longer able to work. What kind of impact would that have on the economy?
Obviously a negative. It would slow down the infrastructure by 25%, I would say.
Right. Exactly. That's mass deportation.
But if they're not supposed to be here and they're taking up this, like I said, the space, then we need to stop planning off from this undocumented immigrants as our GDP. That's not like real. We need to be protecting our laws and our citizens.
Wait. I just want to clarify. Just because you can say that they're not supposed to be here, that does not change the economic impact of their removal. Mr. Brook, it's back to you. Take it away. Why do you support the man, the myth, the failure of Trump as president?
Well, one, because they're exploiting the labor of these people that come across. They can just pay them a lot less than they can Americans.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that comes along with them. And then mainly the labor is the biggest thing because they can exploit people in trades and other things to pay them less instead of paying Americans more.
Cool. I'll go ahead and respond to that point. You are right that employers exploit undocumented immigrants more than they exploit American citizens. You're right that because of that, undocumented immigrants get lower wages on average. But now we need to ask ourselves why. Why do you think that employers have an easier time exploiting immigrants, undocumented immigrants to be more specific, compared to citizens?
Because, well, one, they've already worked a lot of physically demanding labor jobs in their country is like what goes on a lot right now. But so when they come over
false hypothesis, because your hypothesis that they were more used to working more physically demanding jobs from the countries that they came from, well, then we'd also expect legal immigrants to get paid less on average, but we don't see that either. So that hypothesis is necessarily not true.
If you look at how their country has evolved, the tools and everything that they use is kind of like 20 years, 30 years behind from what we usually use standardized for most of our tools.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure that claim is true, but once again, the root of your claim here is false, right? Saying that they get paid lower wages on average because of something to do with the conditions of the country that they came from. The reason why we know that claim is false is because then we would thereby also expect legal immigrants to get paid lower wages on average because they're also coming from countries outside of America, and we don't see that. So the real reason why undocumented immigrants get paid lower wages on average compared to citizens is because they don't possess residency or citizenship, meaning they possess less bargaining power against their employer because they're under the threat of being deported. They don't have long-term survivability in the economy. Their employer can report them to ICE if they don't do what they want. It's easier to exploit them for that reason, less bargaining power on average. Now,
but they also pay in less to the government, so then it doesn't make sense. Like, they don't need to get paid the extra amount that we usually get, which is actually, for most cases, they work out how much taxes are and the median wage, what's livable. So when someone comes in that doesn't have to follow those guidelines, they can kind of abuse that. They don't really need to get paid the same amount. 20 an hour isn't the worst thing to someone that doesn't have to pay in all the time. You know what I'm saying? They still have to pay for taxes on food and state taxes. You can't avoid that certain stuff. But when you're talking about every year, how much, if you made over a certain amount, you have to pay in. You're not taking from the government. So if they were to do that,
I'm going to shoot in the dark with a response here. To be honest, I'm not clear on what you just said. What you just said, it was very unclear. I'm going to take a shot in the dark here. I think that you were trying to communicate a point about how undocumented immigrants don't have to pay taxes. They're not held to the same legal labor requirements, etc. Well, that's false. Undocumented immigrants do have to pay taxes just like citizens. Everybody making money in America has to pay taxes. And they do pay taxes. Undocumented immigrants pay around $100 billion in taxes per year, as well as the same legal labor requirements that are held to citizens are also held to undocumented immigrants. Once again, I'm not sure what point you made. So under the table. Well, guess what? Paying somebody under the table is illegal. So they still have those legal requirements imposed on them. Now, if your argument is that they're more likely to get paid under the table than citizens, you're likely correct. Why? Because they can't file for a tax return if they work over the table, and they don't qualify for any of the benefits that paying taxes is supposed to pay for, like federal Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security. Well, what all that this tells us is that they'd be just as likely to pay taxes over the table as citizens if they were able to file for a tax return or claim federal benefits. How can can we ensure that they're able to file a tax return or claim federal benefits? Maybe if we offer them a pathway to residency or citizenship. So it seems like all the issues here that you've pointed out, like the idea that they have less bargaining power on average, therefore it's easy for their employers to exploit them, or that they're more likely to work under the table, therefore it's more likely for
but
their
it's not
employers
our
to exploit
job
them,
as a citizen to take over.
is easy to remedy by simply offering them a pathway to residency or citizenship.
But it's not our job as a citizen to go and take these people that are abusing the power that it's not our fault that it's there. It's not theirs either, but there is loopholes inside of the government that everyone can exploit, and they're coming over and they're using those, and it's not our job to take and remove those type of people. It's the government's job to be the parental guardian, whatever, to their citizens and actually be the responsible ones to do that.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Everything that you just said went in one ear and out the other. I simply did not comprehend what you mean. Like, I don't know what you mean. What are you saying? Like, make a coherent point there that I could understand without being confused.
It's not. We're asking you're saying that it's wrong for the government to do this and step in.
Wrong for the government to do a
citizens.
deportation?
Yes, you're saying it's wrong for them to do that.
Yeah, yes, I do think that a deportation is a bad, wrong thing because of the negative impacts that it has on this country and the negative impacts that it has on the immigrants. It doesn't help anybody, it hurts everybody. So that's why I think it's wrong.
But all I'm saying is it is, for my opinion, it is right, and it's not our job as a citizen to do that. We pay taxes for the government to do that.
Okay, would you agree with me here that conceptually speaking, a bad policy is a policy that generates more negative outcomes than positive outcomes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's now see if that would categorize and include mass deportation. Would you agree with me here that if I could demonstrate that mass deportation yields more negative outcomes than positive outcomes, it's a bad policy?
I guess.
Okay. And if you want to argue that it's a good policy, you'll have to demonstrate that it has more positive outcomes than negative outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll give you the negative outcomes. Let's see if you could give me the positive outcomes. One negative outcome is a significant hit to our GDP, 1.1 trill through 1.7 trill per year. Another negative outcome is a significant hit in reduction in taxable revenue to our federal government, $100 billion per year. Another negative outcome is a destabilized manufacturing sector created by the forceful layoff of the 8.3 million undocumented immigrants working. Another negative outcome is the very significant hit on the consumer side of things by forcefully removing 12 million consumers. All this amounts to the greater negative outcome of a destabilized economy that operates less efficiently. That would include a reduction in the average quality of life and an increase in things such as poverty. Another negative outcome, which would be consequential of an increase in something such as poverty, would be more crime. So, I mean, we'll start there. It could go on and on and on, but there's a bunch of negative outcomes. What are the positive outcomes?
Is going to help the labor force in the middle class, because a lot of us are struggling right now because construction fields are able to, like I said, loophole the labor field where they don't have to pay someone as much or it wouldn't move up. So like what would be the median for what is survivable has to move up some way. We don't have a union, so it has to move up by the prices of everything going up and it just being not worth the job. So someone's just saying, no, I'm not going to do the job. That doesn't make sense. Well, guess what? Jose down the street is willing to do it for any amount of money.
I don't think that we should use the name Jose to just refer to undocumented immigrants. That sounds like incredibly incredibly.
Well, I'm not trying to be.
Jose, the undocumented immigrant. No, that just characterizes Hispanic individuals with Latino names as not supposed to be in the country, and that's what leads to outcomes of blatant xenophobia and racism held against Hispanic individuals, telling them that they need to go back to where they came from. Yeah, and that happens a lot because of this rhetoric. In fact, it's even happened to some family friends. That's what happens when we just label undocumented immigrants as Jose's.
I know, but I didn't mean to say it like that. I was just trying to give it to explain the story. I gotta feel it a little bit to really understand sometimes.
I have no clue. I have no clue what you're saying. I'm going to be honest. I think that you're trying to make a point now that a positive outcome of mass deportation would be to a positive impact on the labor market, because undocumented immigrants are more willing to accept lower wages on average. It reduces wages in the sector. Are you saying that if we were to remove them all, that wages in the sector would go up?
Yes, because like I said, no one's willing to do the jobs that are that cheap or for
Okay.
this amount of time.
Oh, okay,
whatever.
sweet. Well, we could also remedy this issue through mass amnesty while also not like just destroying our GDP, destroying our labor force, destroying our manufacturers, and excommunicating 12 million consumers. The reason why I say that mass amnesty or the naturalization of undocumented immigrants would fix this is because the reason why they accept lower wages is because they have less bargaining power due to the fact that they're not residents or citizens. If we literally make them residents or citizens, they'll have just as much bargaining power as everybody else, meaning that they won't be more likely to accept lower wages on average, remedying the issue that you've been able to point out in the labor force generated by undocumented immigrants working, while also not, reducing our GDP by the trillions of dollars that I said, not increasing the crime
A lot
rates
of them
by
know
the-
they're not going to get the documentation, and that's why they sneak over ahead of time, because they know they fail in certain qualifications, certain arrests, whatever, yada yada yada.
What is this
And
guy
they
saying?
know they're not going to pass that, so that's why they sneak over anyway. They don't care about documentation or any of that. They don't. It's not that for them.
Oh, that's not true at all. So that's a completely false claim. No. So absolutely not. The main incentive for undocumented entry isn't like pre-existing prior criminal offenses that would make one not pass a system of naturalization. It's the fact that the legal means of entry are just too unattainable. It takes 20 to 25 years to become a citizen. That's the main reason why individuals come into this country with the use of undocumented means, not because they have prior violent criminal offenses. My evidence for that is if you are like a violent criminal, if you have committed a prior violent criminal offense, the likelihood of you recommitting is like incredibly high. In some places in America, it's like 72%. So if like your statement was true that most undocumented immigrants like have prior criminal offenses that would prevent them from passing a system of like naturalization or legal entry, well, then we'd expect their crime rates to be significantly higher, but they're not. They're actually significantally lower.
So how does it help the country? I know obviously it boosts up some of the GDP.
No.
because
You're
helping
still
them
you're still trying to give me a positive outcome of mass deportation. You haven't been able to tell me one yet.
Well, you're not accepting that it would help the labor force because we don't have a union for most of them, other than like.
Dude, I gave you a counter argument. What was my counter argument?
The amnesty and all this other stuff that you're gonna.
Right. So I didn't accept your conclusion that therefore mass deportation is good because I was able to give you a counter argument that would also increase median wages in sectors such as construction by giving the undocumented immigrants residency or citizenship, thereby giving them more bargaining power. Of course, this would rule out mass deportation.
So you're saying that more people in my field is going to help me.
Well, actually, yeah. When we have more people buying goods in your fields and we have more people producing goods in your fields,
No, but it's the labor side. So more people taking the jobs, more people available is going to help me. That doesn't actually work like that. That's the opposite of what you need. You need a competitive market, but it's not like when you flood the market, it just completely ruins everything.
Okay. Well, question. Do you think that hypothetically you'd be in support of limiting birth rates of American citizens so we stop flooding the market of labor entry?
I mean, I don't think we have high enough birth rates as is,
No?
so I don't see how we could flood them.
Right, precisely. And do you think that like your market would be better off or worse off if I just randomly chose like 25% of all construction workers and banned them from ever working again? What kind of impact do you think that have on the construction market?
Obviously, it would need to stabilize. It would need some.
If I just snap my fingers and laid off 25% of construction workers and prevented them from working a day in their life again, what kind of impact would that have on the market, and what kind of impact would that have on the larger economy?
If they're undocumented,
No,
and they're not supposed to be there to begin
I'm just
with.
saying, like 25% of all construction workers at random. I choose them, I snap my fingers, they're no longer able to work. What kind of impact would that have on the economy?
Obviously, a negative. It would slow down the infrastructure by 25%, I would say.
Right. Exactly. That's mass deportation.
But if they're not supposed to be here and they're taking up this, like I said, the space, then we need to stop planning off from this undocumented immigrants as our GDP. That's not like real. We need to be protecting our laws and our citizens.
Wait. I just want to clarify. Just because you can say that they're not supposed to be here, that does not change the economic impact of their removal.
Okay, so I get that you can use them as a labor force, but that does not mean that they need to be here or they have a right to be here for citizens that pay taxes for the government to protect the laws that they're trying to uphold.
Under a mass deportation, you'd pay more taxes since there'd be a lower total amount of people paying taxes.
but there wouldn't be as many people needed on the border or as paid ICE agents because of the amount of deportation needed because of the Biden administration. So
I don't even
know
understand what
why.
the Biden administration has to do. The last claim that I made to refute your abundantly false claim to justify mass deportation. Stay on topic. You made the claim that something is positive about the removal of all undocumented immigrants in this country because citizens pay taxes. I just simply refuted that claim by saying that citizens would actually pay more in taxes since there'd be a lower total amount of taxpayers.
It's the opposite for me. I get that you're on the side of the undocumented immigrant, but as a taxpayer, I feel like our rights are more. They should definitely uphold our rights more. Like, why are we fighting for the rights of undocumented immigrants over the rights of citizens in the United States?
So now you're suggesting a false dichotomy because what the assumption here is if we don't deport undocumented immigrants, somehow citizens will suffer. No, actually the opposite is true, and I've already given you the argument for it. If we do a mass deportation, the citizens will suffer because they'll be working in a suboptimal economy with less production, less consumers, and a lower GDP. Citizens suffer if we do a mass deportation. And guess what? Citizens flourish if we do mass amnesty. Your life becomes better if we do mass amnesty. Real median wages goes up if we do mass amnesty. GDP growth is boosted if we do mass amnesty. Poverty goes down if we do mass amnesty. Taxable government revenue goes up if we do mass amnesty.
But why couldn't they have done it the legal way? Why couldn't we have just done it that way and grown our GDP the right way and assert like they're not adding too much to the GDP
now you're just back to
anyway.
resuggesting a non-economic argument. Dude, if you're gonna come at me with economic claims saying that somehow the average American citizen is made economically worse off by allowing undocumented immigrants to stay in the country, or if we were to give undocumented immigrants a pathway to residency or citizenship, and then as soon as I prove that the other that the opposite claim is true, that your life is made economically worse off by their removal, then you just pivot back to this like idea of the fact that we need to enforce the law even if it makes your life worse. You're just completely like convoluting the conversation we're having. You're trying to argue 2 points at once to obfuscate from the fact that you don't have any cogent rebuttal to the claims that I'm making. So, I mean, if you want to stick on the topic that we need to deport them no matter what the impact is on America as a country because they broke the law and we need to be tough on crime, well, think about it this way. I now have an argument that you shouldn't support Trump, and I don't even need to prove that Trump is bad at his job in order to uphold it. Because at the end of the day, Donald Trump is a 34-count felon, and at the end of the day, Donald Trump has been held civilly liable for rape. So I need to make this point clear, even if I can accept that Donald Trump has a positive impact on America as the president, well, if we just kind of hold to your hyperbolic view that regardless of what the impact is of immigrants on this country, or regardless of what the impact of mass amnesty would be on this country, they broke the law, we need to get them out, regardless of what Trump's impact is on the country, or regardless of how effective he is as a president for the country, he broke the law 34 times and was held civilly liable for raping a woman, we need to get him out.
But if there was anything that could have stopped him from becoming president, what the Democrats have already tried that, like they did with the 34 counts of paying his lawyer. So like, I don't
well, okay.
get it.
Wow. So now you're like rhetorically talking down the felonies that he committed, acting as if they're no big deal. So therefore you don't care he committed them. You still think he should be president. You understand that legally speaking, they're classified as a bigger deal than undocumented entry into this country under under 8 USC subpenal code 1385 and the typical execution of such, which is the code in which makes undocumented entry into this country a federal crime. They're adjudicated as misdemeanors, which is a lower level offense than a felony, and it was felonies in which Donald Trump was found guilty of. So legally speaking, he did something worse than undocumented entry 35 times. So if you want to play down the 35 criminal offenses Trump was guilty of, you should thereby obviously play down the offenses that undocumented immigrants are guilty of, because legally speaking, it is literally a less severe infraction upon our legislation.
But the best thing you guys have on him is 34 counts of the lawyer stuff. And then that grape that no one even really knows if it really happened. She called it out 15, 20 years later. And
respond to what I just said. Why are you ignoring what I just said? You just said the best thing we have on Trump is something worse than undocumented entry. So if that's not enough to keep him out of the White House, why is that enough to keep immigrants out of this country?
he's fighting the issues that the Biden administration started. He didn't let in this amount. No other president has let over this amount of undocumented immigrants during their administration. So what he's doing is trying to take charge and overcompensate for the undercompensation of an administration.
So are you saying that you don't care that he committed these 35 felonies because he's benefiting the country?
No, I thought we were trying to go on to immigrants. So if we're trying to
I think that you're confused on the argument. I'll make the argument incredibly clear. Just listen, and I think that you'll be able to understand. You're saying that you don't care that he committed these 34 felonies. You don't think that these 34 felonies are serious, right?
I think it's here nor there that if it was something that could have stopped him from becoming president, it already would have. So if it's not that big, then why should anyone worry?
The way that it stopped him from becoming president is by convincing most voters to hold it as a red line against him. So I don't understand what that argument is doing for you, because obviously just because most people don't think it's that serious doesn't mean that it is that serious. I mean, they also did this with his associations with Epstein. They did this with his attempted coup of the federal election in 2020. Popular support for fascists is probably not going to be a good argument to demonstrate that fascist is good for this country. So I'm going to go back to what I said. Do you think that Donald Trump's 34 felonies are sufficiently wrong to keep him out of the Oval Office?
No, based on what I've inquired about the details of the case, I don't think so.
And make it explicitly clear for us. Why do you think that they're not sufficiently wrong to keep him out of the Oval Office?
Because it had nothing to do with colluding or treason or anything that would be like against the United States in that way. He did something that is against the law in maybe certain counties or states inside of the United States, but it's not something that is widely illegal.
Are you trying to say that it's like a victimless crime that didn't really hurt anyone?
In a sense. But
okay,
I mean,
so if we shouldn't just take victimless crimes that don't really hurt anybody too seriously. Well, not only is undocumented entry a victimless crime that doesn't hurt anybody, but I mean it actually helps a lot of people by ensuring faster GDP growth, by ensuring our government has more money to spend on social safety nets. They're productive economic providers that makes this country better off. So I mean, you know, if you want to argue that his felonies weren't that serious to keep him out of the Oval Office, then why should I believe that you do believe that undocumented entry is serious enough to keep immigrants out of this country?
Because first off, I don't think it's safe for the undocumented immigrants that are trying to cross over. Some of them, they're classed on how much money they can pay the coyote to cross them across the border. So they wear like little bands, and if they have like a lower level band, then they can basically do whatever they want with them, no matter the age.
So good point. You're just saying that undocumented entry into this country is unsafe for the immigrants. I actually agree. That's why I think that we should eradicate undocumented entry by making the legal means of entry into this country significantly better, thereby granting no incentive for undocumented entry in the first place. Because the main incentive for undocumented entry is going to be the unattainability of the legal means of entry into this country. But we're not talking about the people that are actively crossing the border. We're talking about the people that are in this country productively providing to our economy that already crossed the border. You're saying those people should be deported because it was unsafe for them to enter into the first place? I don't think that makes much sense.
Because if we just act as if that the borders of our country are just a phase through, anyone can just cross through, and we shouldn't really hold anyone accountable. The laws don't really matter.
Don't talk about accountability. You put a rapist in the Oval Office. Shut up, bro. Shut up. I don't want to hear about accountability. Dude, you support a president that unironically gave presidential pardons to people that stomped on cops' heads on January 6th. You don't care. He called them patriots. Or what about DJ Rodriguez? He drove a stun gun, a fucking taser, into a cop's neck on J6 and gave him a heart attack, and he's still going to therapy for PTSD because of it. Donald Trump let him out of jail and called him a patriot. What the fuck are you yapping about? Accountability for crimes? Come on.
Whatever in 1982 that actually brought a BOMB to the Capitol. You don't remember that? And she was a leftist.
In 1982. That was like 20 years before I was born.
And then Bill Clinton freed her. He pardoned her, presidentially pardoned her after 18 years in prison.
Well, unlike you, I'm not a fucking cultist. If somebody brought a literal BOMB to the Capitol, they should go to jail and serve out the entirety of their term. And if Clinton fucking pardoned them, I disagree with that.
That's what the leftist side did, though.
So I just want to clarify, in order for you to think you're winning this debate, you have to treat Dean Withers like Bill Clinton, and you think that I can't have any ideological disalignments with Bill Clinton. Okay, all right, let's play that game. Let's treat each other's side of the aisles as fucking monoliths. Because we got Nick Fuentes over on the right that denies the Holocaust and thinks that Hitler's a good guy. Guess what? You deny the Holocaust, you think Hitler's a good guy, you're a Nazi, and you deserve to be socially scrutinized. Oh, is that unfair? Oh, well, it's probably super unfair for you to equivocate between me and Bill Clinton, saying that if I disagree with anything on Bill Clinton, I'm not truly a progressive, and you've somehow won the debate because you've been able to point out somebody on the left has done.